Hey friends, happy Thursday. Welcome back to another Cook with Kris. I am so excited to be back in the kitchen with you guys today. We were totally snowed out last week and I am very glad that I didn't drive the 45 minutes up to my parents' kitchen because we ended up getting like 6 inches of snow within few hours. So we are back in the kitchen. It's actually beautiful and sunny out today here in New England, and I am so excited to share with you what I love to call date night pasta. This is a lemon garlic sausage pasta that tastes like it came from a restaurant but is really easy to put together in your kitchen. So I'm very excited to share this one with you guys today. We have enjoyed this over and over again, and I love to teach it because it's one of those recipes, once you try it, it's so easy, it becomes a go-to. So what you're gonna need for this recipe, it is a pasta recipe, of course, so some sort of a pasta that you love. I am using the rest of a box of a gluten-free tagliatelle, which is my favorite, all-time favorite pasta. I love making it homemade, but today we're using the box kind. I've got about half a box left here, but you can use whatever pasta shape you want. You could use a chickpea pasta for more protein. You could use a classic white pasta, whatever works for you. Tagliatelle is my favorite shape. You could use fettuccine, you could use spaghetti, some sort of a long pasta. Or you know what, whatever pasta you want. Like, whatever pasta works. So we're gonna grab a pasta. I already have my water going for pasta back there, and we'll talk a little bit about how we're actually gonna cook the pasta because yes, that is important. You are also gonna want some sort of sausage, or if you wanna make this totally plant-based, then you can also use mushrooms instead. Mushrooms add a really delicious savory flavor, so in place of the sausage, you could also use mushrooms. I do recommend you season the mushrooms well when you're cooking them, like you would cook the sausage, because the sausage adds its own set of flavors as well. So I recommend using some Italian seasoning, some garlic powder, and a good amount of salt when you're sauteing the mushrooms, but you can use them exactly in place of the sausage, how I'm gonna use that in the recipe. I'm just using some Italian sausage from Neiman Ranch, which just happens to be my favorite sausage. You're also gonna need some spinach or whatever leafy greens you want. A couple of really big handfuls works, whatever you've got on hand. You could use kale, you could use Swiss chard, you could use arugula, you could use basically whatever you've got on hand, but I happen to like baby spinach because I always have it around for my smoothies. You're gonna want one good juicy lemon, okay? So you're gonna want the zest and the juice of the lemon, so make sure you rinse it. I need to rinse mine and take the sticker off. But you're gonna need one good lemon. You're going to, I already minced it, but you're gonna need one big old clove of garlic or 2 smaller cloves of garlic, or more if you want. Like I always say, you measure garlic with your heart. Garlic is amazing. So as much garlic as you would like. You're gonna want some fresh grated Parmesan. If you wanna make the plant-based version, you could also use nutritional yeast, but I keep it in just like this little container because Parmesan keeps for quite some time, but I like grating it. I find it has the best flavor, but you can use whatever Parmesan you've got on hand. Some sort of parm is great. And just some sea salt or real salt, whatever you want to use, and olive oil. That's it. So simple, right? Okay, there is one other thing that you might want to make, and we're going to make this first. It's totally optional, but it really does just take it up a level. So if you want to take it up a notch, we're going to make some herbed breadcrumbs. You can make homemade breadcrumbs using some stale bread that you just pulse in the food processor. That's typically what I do, or you can just use a plain panko breadcrumb without any seasonings or anything like that. Here's what you do for the breadcrumbs. We're gonna make these just to start, and then we'll get into talking about the actual pasta. We're kind of waiting for the pasta pot to boil, the water to boil. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a small to medium sized pan on a burner, and I'm gonna turn it up to about medium, and I'm gonna add a good splash of olive oil in the bottom. We're gonna let the olive oil heat up, okay? You always want the pan to heat up and then the oil to heat up before you put anything in, because if you are using oil in your cooking, that is what is actually heating what you're cooking. So we're gonna make some herbed breadcrumbs, and these are gonna go on top at the end, and it's just gonna add a little bit of crispiness to it. And if you have been around for whenever I talk about flavors, we know that the foundations of flavor are taste, texture, and temperature. Now we are hitting on all of the tastes today with this pasta dish. So sweet, salty, savory, bitter, and umami. We've got a little bit of the well, we'll go into it, but we've got a little bit of that sweetness from the pasta. We have the savory and the sweet from the sausage. We have a little bit of the bitterness from the greens. We have a little bit of the sourness from the lemon. And then of course we have the saltiness, and we've got the umami from the sausage. We're hitting everything when it comes to taste in this pasta dish. But in terms of texture, everything's kind of the same, right? So we've got the pasta, and we're gonna saute it up with some sausage and some spinach, and there's a couple varying textures there, but the reason why these herb breadcrumbs take it up a notch is because they add some texture to the top of the pasta, and they just add a little something extra that you might get at a restaurant and not think to put on at home. So, all right, now my oil is hot because I've been talking over here. I'm just gonna let this cool down really quick. And I can hear my pasta water boiling over there. So let's go ahead and let's salt our pasta water. Now this is important. You are probably not salting your pasta water enough, okay? If you do not use almost a handful of salt in your pasta water, yes. And no, a handful of salt is not going in your dish. So many people are afraid of salt, but your food, you want your food to be seasoned, not salty. But the only seasoning that your pasta itself is going to get is when it is cooking in the water, and it's not going to be in the water for very long. The longer something is in the seasoning, like when you're marinating something, the more it's going to absorb that seasoning, whatever we're talking about. It's not actually in the pot of water for very long, so you need to season it really well, because that's the only time it's being seasoned. Without the other sauce on top, it's not very flavorful. So we're gonna go ahead and add a good amount of salt to the pot, and then I'm gonna add the pasta, and then we're gonna go back to our breadcrumbs because we don't want it that hot. Okay. I'm gonna add my pasta, and this pasta takes, let me just make sure, yes, I do have a culinary degree, and I still read the package because every pasta is different, and this is not fresh tagliatelle, so it takes more than 3 minutes. So it's gonna take about 10 minutes. Okay, let's watch the clock. Okay, always make sure that you stir your pasta so it doesn't stick to the bottom, because it will. It's gonna try to stick to the bottom. Okay, let's go back to the herbed breadcrumbs. So we've got our pasta in. So we started our pasta water first, so the pasta got going. I didn't mention this before, but we want the pasta to be going because the rest of this is gonna come together pretty quickly. So we want the pasta to be done so we can throw it in with the sauce. This whole dish comes together in about 20 minutes or so, and that includes with the herbed breadcrumbs. This does not take very long. It's why I love calling it date night pasta, because it tastes like it's from a restaurant. You can make it at home. It comes together quickly. It doesn't take a ton of energy, but it's really delicious. Okay, so we've got our oil nice and hot. We've got our breadcrumbs. I'm gonna use a couple of small handfuls of breadcrumbs. You don't need a ton on the top. So I'm gonna put a couple of handfuls of breadcrumbs there. And to it, you can add fresh chopped parsley if you've got it. I do not have fresh chopped parsley, so I'm gonna use dried. So I've got some dried parsley. You can also use an Italian seasoning, and I've got a little bit of garlic powder in here too that I'm throwing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add that to the top as well. And a good pinch of salt, which you don't need if your breadcrumbs are seasoned. Make sure you're salting from above. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna mix this all together, and we are going to toast it. It's already starting to toast, you guys. We're gonna toast it until it starts to brown, which will be like 20 seconds. It's not gonna take very long. If your pan was already hot and your oil is already hot, then you're gonna add them to the pan. As soon as it turns fragrant, it's done. And then you have a delicious topping for your pasta. We're gonna set that aside. That's it. So easy. We're gonna set that aside, and we're gonna get going on our sauce while the pasta's cooking. All right, so like I mentioned before, we only have a couple ingredients in our sauce. I'm gonna go ahead and get a big old pan going with some more olive oil. This is like an Italian-inspired recipe, so it's all about the olive oil. We're gonna put that on about medium-high. And let's get our mise en place ready so our sauce comes together really quick. So for those of you who are new, mise en place is a French term. It means everything in its place. It is the chef's secret to getting things done faster in the kitchen. You gotta get everything ready to go, like I had the breadcrumbs and the seasoning and the salt ready to go before you put it in the pan. That's how you prevent things from burning. That is how everything in the kitchen comes together faster. So I'm gonna start, depending on how many people you have and how big your sausages are. These are really big sausages, you guys. So I'm just gonna use one of them, and this is to serve two. So if you have a sausage that has a casing around the outside like this, you can just peel the casing off. I'm gonna grab a bowl and just crumble it into the bowl. If you have one that doesn't have a casing, that doesn't easily come off like that, then you can just chop it into small pieces. But I'm gonna take the casing off and we're gonna put the casing aside. I just don't want it on the counter. And we're just gonna go ahead and crumble it. Turn that down a little bit. And we're just gonna crumble the sausage. So what we're going to do is we are going to start by adding the sausage to the hot pan with the olive oil in it. And then once it's nice and browned, we're actually going to take it out of the pan, and then we're gonna deglaze the pan with a little bit of, we're gonna add some garlic, of course. And then we're gonna deglaze the pan with a little bit of lemon juice, add in the spinach, and then we're gonna add the sausage back to the pan with a little bit of the pasta water. Remember that we season that pasta water really well with salt. That's another way we are seasoning this dish. One of the best and easiest tricks to creating a sauce for your pasta without actually using a sauce is just by using some of the water you use to cook the pasta in. The water that you use to cook the pasta in has some starch in it, so it acts as a thickener, and then it also hopefully has some salt in it, so it adds as a way of seasoning as well. So just remember, when you do use the pasta water, that it is seasoned, so we don't just add a whole bunch of salt. You wanna make sure, again, that your food is seasoned, not salty. I'm gonna go wash my hands, because sausage. So the next thing that we need for our mise en place, okay, is our lemon juice and our lemon zest, okay? I'm just gonna use the same little bowl that we used for the herbs before. And we wanna zest our lemon before we go ahead and juice it, right? So we're gonna use the zest of one whole lemon, and I'm just using my microplane grater, which, if any of you have been around for any length of time, you know it's my favorite kitchen tool next to my knife. I love my microplane. It is great for garlic, it's great for ginger, it's great for citrus. It's just the best. You need a microplane grater. Go out and buy one now. They're like less than $20. This one I think was like $12. The microplane brand is my favorite, but I was having, they were out of stock around Christmas time. I was having issues getting one. So this one's OXO, and it works pretty well. It's not as good as the microplane that I had for 10 years, but this one's pretty good. So I've just zested my lemon. Apparently I've zested it everywhere, but it is what it is. And we're gonna juice our lemon as well, because we wanna make sure we've got the juice. If your lemon, if you don't feel like it's juicy, make sure to roll it before you go ahead and juice it. And I'm just using this little mini colander. You can use a lemon or like a citrus juicer, but I prefer a mini colander. I find that it gets more juice and it doesn't like squirt out on the side everywhere. This is a worthwhile investment. It's another one of those things, like one of those tools. I'm not big on kitchen tools or gadgets. Like I don't even have an air fryer, you guys. I've thought about it, I don't. I'm not big on a ton of gadgets. I'm minimalist by nature, and I do not believe in that we need like tons and tons of gadgets to be good cooks or to be efficient cooks. But I do think that it is important that we have the ones that are gonna help us to be more efficient. And a couple of those are the microplane, a good knife, like I mentioned, and the little mini colander. So we've got our lemon zest, Got our lemon juice. If you're using a green that's bigger than baby spinach, then I would recommend chopping it up, but this baby spinach is fine as it is. And we've got our sausage, and our pan looks like it's nice and hot. We're at about medium heat, medium high. I'm gonna go ahead and add the sausage to the pan, and I'm gonna grab the same spatula over here, and we're just gonna go ahead and cook the sausage. So if you're just hopping on, I'm using, this is a recipe for 2. You can double it, and you can triple it, and you can quadruple it just by adding more pasta and more sausage. Really just by doubling or tripling the ingredients. Super, super easy to make, and the kids actually really love this recipe too. We just call it date night pasta because it's a great recipe to make for an at-home date night. Be careful of the oil. It is sausage, so it does tend to splatter a little bit. So I'm just gonna come over here. We're gonna get nice and cozy. And all I'm doing is just breaking up the sausage into smaller pieces over here. And we're literally just letting it brown. I've got a slotted spoon over here that I'm going to I'm gonna take the sausage out once it's nice and brown. And in the meantime, while the sausage goes, I'm just gonna go check on our pasta that's been cooking for almost 10 minutes now. It's been about 9 minutes, so we're gonna go check on that. Okay, do you guys know the trick to tell if your pasta is done? Some people say it's throw it against the wall, but realistically, it's a little bit harder to tell with this type of pasta, and I'm gonna try and show it to you guys. But if the middle, okay, is still either white or uncooked, sorry, it's hard for you guys to see, then it's not done. This, it's a little more than al dente. It needs about another minute, which means the package was pretty accurate because it's been 9 minutes, so. Al dente is an Italian term that means to the teeth or of the teeth. So it just means that it has a little bit of bite to it, but you don't want your pasta to still be hard. So I'm also going to grab a small bowl to make sure that we do not forget our pasta water because that is the main part of our sauce, right? I am reserving about 1/2 cup of pasta water. Probably not going to use 1/2 cup, but I would rather have more rather than less, so I have enough to make up the sauce that I want to make up. I'm going to take the sausage out because it's nice and brown. All right. I'm all over the place with my equipment today, you guys. I've been working in the kitchen all day, and when that happens, things sometimes get a little wacky. All right, we're just gonna take our sausage out. It's totally up to you if you wanna drain the pan. I find that anything that's left in the pan just adds extra flavor, so I am gonna go ahead and keep it as is. The pan is very hot now, so I am going to give it a minute or two to cool down a little bit. I'm gonna go drain the pasta just because I do not want to burn the garlic once I add it to the pan, because burned garlic is not what we want around here. So we're gonna give it a minute to cool down. It's yelling at me. We're gonna give it a minute to cool down while I go drain the pasta, because now it's been 2 minutes. All right, our pasta is drained, our sausage is cooked, our pan is cooling off because it's angry. My goodness. So if you need to scrape any bits of sausage out of the bottom, feel free to do so. You don't want any little extra pieces of sausage up in there. Once it's cooled down just a little bit, we can go ahead and add our garlic to the bottom. Anything else we need to get ready? The only other thing that I want to make sure that we have ready before we start to make this sauce, okay, we've got our pasta water, we've got our lemon juice, we've got our garlic, we've got our whatever sort of greens you want to use. I'm going to go ahead and grate some Parmesan that we're going to put on right at the end. Might as well get it done now while we're waiting for the pan to cool down before we throw the rest of the stuff in. So real time, you guys, if I'm not talking to you, this is almost done at this point. This literally is gonna come together within the next 5 minutes, which is so, so great. Feel like we could all use more quick recipes in our life, right? We've done enough waiting in the last year. Let's have an easy recipe because we don't have time to wait around for a recipe to cook. All right, I'm just grating this fresh grated Parmesan. I'm using the same microplane. You could rinse it off if you don't want lemon zest in your microplane, but the lemon zest is going in the dish, so meh. I don't mind. I love me some lemon zest. All right, I am grating a few tablespoons worth, probably about 1/4 cup. You can put in 2 tablespoons. You could put in 1/2 cup. It is totally up to you and what you want to put in at the end. All right, our pan has cooled down quite a bit here. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add the garlic. Now, here's the deal. We're gonna add the garlic. We're gonna swirl the garlic around. We're gonna add the spinach immediately. We do not want that garlic in there for very long. I'm actually gonna use my fingers. We don't want the garlic in there for very long at all because, again, we do not, see, you can hear it, probably hear it sizzling. We don't want that garlic to burn. We do not want that bitterness in our dish. So, swirling it around. That's it. Adding our greens. Couple big handfuls. I'm gonna use whatever is in this stasher bag. There we go. Now, typically I tell you to make sure you season your greens. We're gonna mix it all around, okay? In this case, you don't need to season it because we are going to be adding in the pasta water in just a minute. So all we're doing now is we're allowing those greens. So our pan has cooled down just a little bit from the sausage. We've got about medium heat. And I'm gonna go ahead and just wilt them down, okay? So we added the garlic for about 10 seconds, mixed it around. And now we're just wilting the pasta. We are wilting the spinach down. If you don't want to use this much spinach, that's cool. You don't need to use this much spinach, but I like the added greens, so I'm just gonna go ahead and let them wilt down. Once they're mostly wilted, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab that lemon juice, okay? So for two servings, you're using the juice of half to a whole lemon, depending on how lemony you want it. The lemon juice, I'm actually gonna turn this up just a little bit. The lemon juice is gonna work to deglaze the pan of anything that might be left in the bottom of the pan. There's not a ton over here. I did tell you to scrape out any like extra bits of sausage if you wanted to from the bottom, just so it doesn't burn. Because again, we don't want the bitterness in there. We don't want it burned. But this will deglaze any of the deliciousness that's kind of stuck to the bottom that we don't want to lose. So we're just adding the lemon juice, and you could also alternately use a splash of white wine as well if you wanted to. And we are just going to, I'll just let you see it really quick, okay? It's simmering in there, and we are just gonna let it cook until the lemon juice is mostly evaporated. And at that point, we can go ahead, and this is gonna be like our main sauce, okay? That in the pasta water. So easy. Once it's mostly evaporated, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add the sausage back in, and we're gonna add the pasta along to it, okay? Then we're gonna add the lemon zest. We want the lemon zest cooked, but just a little bit. So we'll add that in with a little bit of our pasta water. We'll mix it around, we'll taste it, we'll season it, and then we'll add more water if we need it, and then our dish is gonna be done. All right, our lemon juice is almost entirely gone, okay? So it's just there's just a little tiny bit in the bottom now. So that means that it is time to go ahead and add everything back. So we're gonna go ahead and add our sausage that's nice and sauteed back in there. Just gonna mix that around. I'm gonna go ahead and add that pasta, which I have drained over by the sink, so I'm just gonna bring that over. If you are just joining us, this is a recipe for 2, but you can double, triple it, quadruple it very easily. I am using a tagliatelle pasta, but you are welcome to use whatever shape you would like. And I'm dropping things as usual. It's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and just mix this all around. The rack next to the sink sits kind of precariously, so, you know, sometimes things fall in the sink. It happens. All right, we're just mixing this pasta around with our spinach and our sausage, and we are gonna add in that lemon zest. We got the zest of 1 whole lemon. You can add more or less depending on how lemony you'd like it, okay? I like it nice and lemony. With the garlic and the lemon, this is both savory and a little bit sweet. So, so good. And then we're gonna add, we're just mixing that around really quick. It only needs a couple seconds. You'll notice that a sauce is already starting to form in the bottom just from what was the olive oil and the lemon juice and the spinach. And then we're just gonna add a couple tablespoons of that pasta water. And then right at the end, we'll add that Parmesan, and then we can add more pasta water if we think it needs it. But I can already tell right now, this doesn't need it. It's so, you guys, this comes together so quickly. So 1, 2, you can measure if you want. That pasta water is really well seasoned, so you probably don't need any extra salt in here, especially with the sausage. Depending on how salty your sausage is as well, you probably don't need any extra seasoning, and you're also gonna add Parmesan. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we made homemade Caesar, and we talked about layering salt, and this is another instance where you want to make sure that you taste as you go and you are layering that salt rather than dumping it all together, because it's really easy for a dish like this with a couple of ingredients that are a little bit saltier to just become kind of overwhelming. So I'm going to taste it before we add the Parmesan, and that will give me a good indication of how much Parmesan I want to add to it. I'm going to turn the heat off because it doesn't need any heat. Oh my gosh, it's so good, you guys. Okay, it's really lemony, not super salty, thankfully. So I'm gonna add a few tablespoons. And I'm gonna mix that around. I'm gonna taste it one more time. So adding the Parmesan does thicken it up quite a bit. If you want to thin out the sauce a little bit, then that is where you would add just a little bit more of that pasta water, being mindful of the fact that yes, the pasta water is seasoned, so it is going to add a little bit more of that. So we'll do a teeny tiny bit, like a teaspoon. That seems good. I always want to give you guys the skills and the tools to become more confident as a chef in your own kitchen. Taste as you go. When a recipe says season to taste, it's seasoned to what tastes good to you. It's not, there is no to taste. It is to what tastes good to you. And the more you start expanding on taste, textures, and temperatures within dishes, the more you'll be able to have that confidence to add a little bit of this and a little bit of that until the recipe is exactly how you like it. So let me go ahead and I'm gonna put this in a bowl and I'm gonna show it to you guys and show you how I finish it off and top it. All right, actually, I'm gonna use a different one. I want you to see the big, wide, beautiful pasta bowl over here. All right, now, this is a huge serving of pasta. I would probably divide this up for 2, but it's totally up to you. Everyone has a different appetite. All right, So this is one big old restaurant size bowl of pasta. You see that? We are gonna go ahead and top it with those breadcrumbs. Those delicious herb breadcrumbs we made right at the beginning. Super fast, great way to elevate your dish. By the way, these breadcrumbs will stay well in the refrigerator, so once you make them, you can use them multiple times on multiple dishes. We're gonna add those herbed breadcrumbs to the top. And then we're gonna add the last tiny little bit of Parmesan that I didn't put in the dish, but you could grate some freshly on as well. You guys, it is 2:30 on the dot. That's a 30-minute dinner. That is a delicious 30-minute date night pasta dinner using very few ingredients. We used pasta, we used sausage, we used lemon juice and zest, we used some garlic, we used the pasta water, some Parmesan, olive oil, salt. That's it. So easy, so delicious. Oh, some spinach too. But it is incredible how just some simple ingredients can create a really delicious and restaurant-worthy dish. So let's go ahead and try it because, I mean, we've got to try it together, right? Oh my gosh. I wish it were dinner time. So good. Okay, so I hope you guys will try this recipe. Have it for a date night at home, or make it just for yourself. Make it for the whole family. It is very family friendly. The kids love it as well. So sometimes the kids like adding a little bit of extra Parmesan, but other than that, it's a really delicious, a really easy 30-minute dinner that's really easy to customize. I loved making it with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. I'm going to put the recipe in my stories. I know I haven't had recipes in my stories the last couple of weeks because I've been teaching more methods, but this is a full recipe, so I'll put that in my stories, so go ahead and check the recipe in my stories. I'm also going to share with you what I'm going to be sharing with Cook with Kris over the next few weeks. We're going to cook around the world in the next month. So next week, I'm going to be sharing a plant-based Moroccan tagine, and then the next week, I'm going to be sharing my classic pad thai. You guys really wanted to learn about my classic pad thai. So we're gonna make a classic pad thai. We're gonna make a shawarma style chicken and make some Greek wraps. And I'm gonna make a risotto at the end of the month next month too. So we've got some really good stuff coming. I love having you guys here live on Thursdays. Let me know if there's anything specific you wanna learn how to cook. I'm happy to teach you. I hope you guys enjoyed this delicious pasta recipe, and I will see you next Thursday.